So far, the 2020s is shaping out to be a pretty cool decade for space exploration. Unlike the more stagnant 2000s and the more preparatory 2010s, many space companies in the US have plans to launch very significant missions in this decade. The first of which is SpaceX's crewed ISS mission, the first commercial crewed mission to space in human history and the first time the US launched people into space since 2011. However, if all goes according to plan, the US may land humans on the moon again in 2024, establish an orbiting space station by 2028, and make an on-the-moon outpost by the 2030s. Today, I'm going to talk about what exactly the moon base will look like. So, let's start with one thing. Why would anyone want to build a base on the moon, other than it being an objectively cool thing to do? After all, the Apollo missions were a huge cost to the US government and did not give back much financial gain. Well, whatever your opinion is on Trump, his recent Artemis Accords gives the first reason for building a base on the moon. The Artemis Accords state that it is okay for nations to mine resources on the moon. And the moon is full of resources that are very useful, such as water, which can be used as drinking water or rocket fuel, and helium-3, which can be used to power nuclear fusion reactors for when we do develop that technology. Likewise, the moon can be a very useful place to study the effects of being in outer space on the human body and mind, as it is very close to Earth and people can be brought back to Earth in case of an emergency. Similarly, it is also a very useful place to practice living on other worlds without Earth's support, while being able to receive supplies or evacuations to Earth should an emergency arise. Finally, we can build launch pads on the moon and be able to ferry supplies from the moon after mining them there to Mars and other planets once humanity creates more space bases in the mid-21st century and onwards. This will be cheaper than sending supplies from Earth because the moon has lower gravity and less atmosphere than the Earth does, thus giving rockets less resistance when they are sent out of the moon's orbit. Now that we know why it's good to have a moon base, let's talk about what the moon base will look like and what sorts of challenges it will have to overcome. First and foremost, the moon base will have to deal with radiation and micrometeorites. As such, instead of a dome or standing structure, most of the moon base will be underground or covered in thick sheets of lunar concrete, which is a mix of sulfur and moon dust. Sure, it won't be as pretty as what sci-fi depicts moon bases as looking like, but at the very least, the astronauts living there won't be dying of cancer. The second problem astronauts living on the moon will have to deal with is the low gravity on the moon, which can eventually weaken the astronauts' muscles and bones. For the first several decades or so, astronauts can deal with this problem by doing intense exercise very often. However, later on in this century, we can build spinning bases that provide artificial gravity. The moon base itself will be based on the water-rich poles of the moon. This is because astronauts will need a good source of drinking water and because electrolysis can be used to break down the water into breathable oxygen. Solar panels, along with nuclear fission and later nuclear fusion, can be used to power the moon base if the panels are placed on the pole of the moon. This is because the poles of the moon receive constant sunlight unlike the equatorial regions of the moon. As for growing food, astronauts on the moon base will use hydroponics, which is growing crops in water instead of soil. As for animal products, well, you can forget about having those on the moon until several decades later when lab-grown animal products become a reality because there simply isn't enough room on the moon to grow the vast amounts of animal feed required for livestock. As such, the initial moon-based astronauts will all be vegans. Since the moon is only 1.3 light seconds away from the Earth, entertainment from the Earth can be broadcasted in near real-time speed. Thus, astronauts living on the moon base won't be able to keep up with the latest news and media from Earth. One final, surprising problem astronauts on the moon base will have to deal with is moon dust. Since the dust particles are very small, they can be inhaled by astronauts if they are not careful and harm the astronauts' respiratory health. And being careful will be very crucial, as moon dust is very sticky. Luckily, however, creative people have come up with creative solutions for these problems. As one YouTuber, Kurzglass, stated in one of their videos, it may be possible to hook up spacesuits outside the moon base and have astronauts crawl into the base from their spacesuits, thus allowing them to never bring the spacesuit into the base. Although there are probably more features that a moon base could include, these are the features that come up to the top of my mind. As such, here's my opinion on what a moon base could look like. Thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, please subscribe and click my channel to explore some more videos to watch. Also, please check out my Discord page at the description below. Finally, I would like to give credit to a fellow YouTuber, Nude Boy, for helping me to come up with this video. The code for this video is coup.